through a dehydration synthesis reaction. Now, we have to also talk about some accessory organs here because some of these enzymes aren't made in the small intestine. Even though they're used there to break down the food, they're not actually made there. The pancreas is a huge organ, not in size, but it plays a big role in your digestion in producing some of those enzymes that are needed for digestion. Oops, sorry about that. So it releases the enzymes into the small intestine. So we call the amylase that's used in the small intestine pancreatic amylase because it actually is made in the pancreas. It doesn't break down food in the pancreas. Pancreas is not involved at all with actual digestion of food. Your food does not pass through your pancreas. It goes from your mouth to down your esophagus to your stomach, to your small intestine, to your large intestine, okay? So no food passes through your pancreas, but your pancreas will make that pancreatic amylase. It will make that pancreatic lipase, and will make that protease that's going to break down the amylase, your carbohydrates, into monosaccharides, your lipase into glycerol fatty acids, the lipids, and then protease breaks the proteins into amino acids. The other important thing about your pancreas is that it produces the hormones insulin and glucagon, and those both play a role in controlling your blood sugar or your glucose. Okay. Now, your insulin helps your body to take up glucose and store it as glycogen in your liver. And so, we always need to have a constant, that's why it's important to eat regular meals or small little snacks throughout the day to keep your glucose levels up. Because as we're going to find out later on, we need that glucose for cellular respiration to help produce our energy for our cells that we need. But if we have an excess amount of glucose floating around in our bloodstream, then the pancreas is going to release the hormone insulin, and it's going to cause your liver to store it as glycogen. And it can be stored there until we need it. And it will be stored there so that we can utilize it later when we need it. Then glucagon is released when blood sugar levels are low. So now all of a sudden, let's say you haven't gotten to eat for a while, you're starting to feel a little kind of shaky and weak. That probably means because your glucose levels have dropped. So what happens then is your pancreas is going to release glucagon, and it's going to cause your liver to break down that glycogen that it has been storing, and it releases the glucose into the bloodstream. So a little phrase we like to remember is, when glucose is gone, use glucagon. Get it? Glucose gone, glucagon. Okay? So just besides creating all of those digestive enzymes, the pancreas is very important in producing these two major hormones that we need to control our blood sugar, insulin and glucagon. And again, if your pancreas doesn't work properly in producing that insulin and stuff, it can lead, to things like diabetes. The reason pancreatic cancer of the pancreatic cancer is so dangerous and almost always leads to death is because you just can't live without your pancreas. It is just so important, not only for digestion, but because of this important reason for producing these hormones. And this just kind of shows you a little picture you can look at to kind of look through how these are related with each other. Another accessory organ, of course, is your liver. Your liver stores that glucose again as glycogen when you have too much of it in your system. It also removes toxic substances from the blood. So things like alcohol and drugs. That's why we don't want you to use either of those because that can really stress out your liver. But a big thing dealing with digestion is that it produces bile. Okay, Bile contains salts that kind of act like detergents in that they break down fat molecules into smaller droplets of fat. So they're going to actually help out in breaking fat or lipids down a little bit easier. So it's produced in the bile, but it's produced in the liver, the bile is, but it's stored in the gallbladder. Okay? So the liver produces the bile, the gallbladder stores the bile. And so some people have their gallbladder removed, and you can live without your gallbladder. That just means that your liver will continuously release bile into your digestive system because it won't have anywhere to store it, and it will go into your small intestine. That's where a lot of the bile will go into, is into the small intestine to help break down those fats. But so if people have their gallbladder removed and don't have a place to store that bile, and the bile is continuously being released, they may have to avoid things that have a lot of fat in them, like greasy foods and fried foods. That may irritate their digestive system, irritate their their intestine and stuff, and cause some intestinal discomfort or problems. Okay. From there, the food goes to the large intestine. Undigested food, there's no digestion that takes place in your large intestine. Your large intestine does, however, absorb water. And, so we always want you to drink plenty of water throughout the day. If your large intestine absorbs too much water out of the food, undigested food, then that food obviously will kind of dry up and get hard. Well, guess what? That means you will have constipation, and it will be kind of difficult to go to the bathroom. If your large intestine absorbs too little, doesn't take out or reabsorb some of that water back into your bloodstream, and leaves too much of that water with the undigested food, well, obviously then it's going to get runny and gross, and you will have diarrhea. So no problems going to the bathroom there. Unfortunately, you'll probably be going to the bathroom too much. So again, absorption, that's where your body will actually take up the food molecules, those broken down subunits of your macromolecules, and take it into your blood. And that occurs, again, in your small intestine. That's where the absorption occurs. And so all those, simple sugars or monosaccharides that the carbohydrates have been broken down into, the amino acids, the fatty acids, all that will be absorbed here. Some water can also be absorbed in your small intestine, but most of it is going to be occurring in that large intestine. We also have things like certain bacteria like E. coli that helps us digest and absorb vitamins B and K. We wouldn't be able to do that on our own if we didn't have those bacteria there. So I know E. coli gets a bad rap, is yes, it can cause some major forms of food poisoning, but this is the E. coli that's a normal part of your body. It's a normal part of your large intestine to help you break down those foods to release some of those vitamins that we need. Okay, so let's do a quick review here to see if we can remember what kind of enzymes, macromolecules they break down and what subunits. So in your mouth, do you remember what was there? Salivary amylase. Okay, that broke down carbs, I'm going to abbreviate here because I don't have a lot of room, into simple sugars or monosaccharides. Okay. Then we go to the stomach. After it passes down the esophagus, I'm not sure why that O is there. There should just be an E there. The stomach, and that's where we have pepsin. Remember the P? It breaks down proteins into amino acids. And then in the small intestine, we have a lot there, right? We have the amylase, pepsin, or protease, I should say. It's another protein one. And then lipase. Okay, so again, amylase breaks down the carbs into the simple sugars. I'm just going to write sugars to abbreviate. Protease, the protein, into, I'm just going to abbreviate amino acids, AA. And lipase, remember what that breaks down? Breaks down the lipids, in this case the fats, into fatty acids and glycerol. So these are the only three main places where actual digestion occurs, where the enzymes occur. Remember that a lot of these enzymes here are actually produced in the pancreas, but they actually are used in the small intestine for digestion. Okay, and don't forget the liver and gallbladder also play a role in storing some of those different molecules that are necessary. So make sure you know all the different major enzymes, where they're located, what macromolecule they break down, and into what